Okay, so the basic concept that I wanted to get across with this video is to show people who are going through day to day to day to day what you call gang stalking, exactly what you're dealing with, especially if it first starts happening to you. You're going to be very paranoid, very confused. You're not going to know at all what the initial intent of what you're experiencing. You're going to know that it's just a strange activity and you want to be left alone. But everywhere you go, it just continues and continues and continues. That's accurate. That's accurate all the way. And then when you explain it to somebody, the way you're going to explain it to them, if you have no knowledge of what's happening, you're going to sound paranoid. You're going to sound delusional. You're going to sound as if you might be under the influence of some sort of drug. Maybe they think you're making it up for whatever reason. Why somebody would make something like that up, I don't know. But that's the delivery. Even if the person is doing actual assignments on you, they still might not know what gang stalking is. A lot of people think they're being followed by a cult. People say, I'm being followed by a satanic cult. I'm being followed by the government. I'm being followed by the KGB. I'm being followed by somebody out there. I don't know who they are. They're aliens. Aliens are following me. Reptile people are following. People are going to come up with all sorts of explanations as to why these events are happening in order to make sense out of it. Because you can't make sense out of it. Cars with the brights are following me. People with these red shirts are following me. I don't know what this is, so I'm going to identify it in any way I can. I know it's happening, but now I have to put an identification on it. See, you got to use what you call a suspended judgment. Don't try to jump to a conclusion as to what's behind it. Because it's Rotarian in nature. It happens all around the world. So you're really, to try to explain it is going to separate you from the other people who are trying to explain it as well. You can say, I don't know what this is, but I know I'm going through it. And that's a start. Now, there are certain apps out there that people have where they can legitimately receive restaurant discount cards, prepaid credit cards, Home Depot cards, all sorts of benefits they can get to do assignments. And the detail of those assignments may be simply to wear a red shirt, or a yellow shirt, or a green shirt, or a blue shirt, and to follow you back and forth from the store, or to follow you where you live at, around the area you live, or to do other things, street theater, mimicking, and the individual within the detail of the assignment may not even know the intent. They may not know this is part of mimicking. They may not know it's part of street theater. That's just the detail they're given in order to do the assignment. Then they receive benefits for the assignment. So the individual, technically, in most cases, is not stalking you. It is stalking, literally, but their awareness of it, they don't know. Now, if they do one assignment and they continue to do 2, 3, 4, now they're going to get a feeling for what's going on. Some of them will move on to look up gang stalking online and learn that, wow, okay, so that's what's going on. But what they're being asked to do often comes through legitimate sources. I was listening to a woman from England last night, and she was speaking of an app called Shopwatch, where people in the UK who are store owners or work at these stores, they're told to watch the people who come in and do certain sorts of things, wear different colors and all this stuff. So that's gang stalking, but is being introduced to the store in a way to where it's healthy for the production of the company. Be aware, watch what's going on, keep things safe. So the person, they know they're being gang stalked, but the people who work at the store aren't looking at it like that. So gang stalking can come in through all these different things. All these things, they can come in through neighborhood watch groups, stores that you go through, they can come in through whoever's out, it can be a homeless guy in the alley who somebody can give him a $10 gift card or give him $50 or something to dress up in a certain way. There's people out there who are watching you come along, especially if you're on foot. They're expecting you. So when you reach a certain area, they've already given out certain money and made certain promises to people to get people to do this activity. So the people, they don't necessarily know who you are. And they don't necessarily know what gang stalking is. but you're still being gang stalked, nevertheless. And so that's one of the biggest things that I want to stress to people is you can't look at the average person doing an assignment against you as if this person is really meaning you harm. So when I first started going through gang stalking, I didn't know what it was. I had no idea in the world what I was going through. I wish I had known, but I didn't know. Eventually, I got into a position to where I could go out and notice certain things like brightening, the mimicking, the color coding. Then I ended up in Phoenix for 2 weeks. And I was really, really observant of the people who were doing these assignments on me. So I said, wait a minute. Why don't I try to interact with these people? So I started waving at them. I just started waving at the cars that went by. I started talking to the people who were doing the assignments. I didn't care who they were. I didn't care if they were in the streets, they were street people, or they were lawyers or doctors, or nuns or priests. If they were doing an assignment, I was going to communicate with them. So I started waving at them. Then I got a positive response back. Even though they were doing the assignments, they started waving back at me. So I'm saying, wait a minute. I thought all this stuff was like malicious and evil. Why are these people waving at me and smiling at me? That doesn't make sense. So then I started talking to them. Oftentimes they wouldn't know. They didn't know anything about our discovery. They didn't know anything about me for real. They just knew they were asked to do the assignment. And so then it got into a thing to where sometimes the people would be open talking about it. A little bit. You can ask somebody, hey, did somebody ask you to walk by me and do that? And one guy, he seemed kind of scared. I don't know why he was scared, but he told me yes. So I said, wow, that's deep. That is really deep. People are asking people to walk by me and do all this strange stuff. And it's happening, but it's not supposed to be happening. It makes you feel like you're on some sort of stage or something. It's a really strange feeling. It's really strange. So I start waving at these people. And then I start talking to them and interacting with them. And I bought a jump rope. Right? I bought a jump rope. Never jumped rope in my life. So I bought a jump rope. And I had an iPad. And I started watching the fights of Muhammad Ali. And so I had met Muhammad Ali at a younger age when I was 7. He came to a park in Muskegon Heights, Michigan. And we met. I tried to shake his hand. He gave me a hug. I was a little boy. I didn't even know who he was. I just knew the adults knew. The adults honored him like he was a big thing. Okay? And so many years later, when I'm going through gang stalking, I come across a Muhammad Ali video. And I watched the Rumble in the Jungle, the fight with him and George Foreman. Then I watched the Thrill in Manila, the fight with him and Joe Frazier. I thought, wow, man. With George Foreman, how is he able to beat? George Foreman was big. I mean, that guy could hit hard. How is Muhammad Ali able to beat him? Right? How could a lanky man, he was really fast, but how could he survive all those blows with the robo-dope? The strategy he used. And so I started saying, wait a minute. So you can grind through this stuff. So then it gave me more initiative to go out. So I started jump roping, watching the Muhammad Ali videos. Now I'm walking around Phoenix. I'm going to parks. I'm going to all these different places. The assignments are coming every single day. They never stop. This happened 24/7. I remember one time I'm at Phoenix in the hotel, and the whole hotel was doing assignments on me. Literally, they even took people out and put people in. They actually took people off the job and put new people in that fit certain descriptions to do the assignments against me. And I could literally every single day, everything that was going on was nothing but assignments. When I go outside, the brightening, the color coding, the street theater. I mean, this was heavy level of target. Like, this was really high. This was high. This was serious. This wasn't simple. I was a foreigner in an area that I was not familiar with, and I was being hit with all this stuff, and I didn't know what to do. Like, what do you do? And so I'm talking to people. I'm jump roping and walking around, and so the people who are observing me, who are orchestrating the assignment's more hands-on, which you call handlers, and there's many different levels of handlers. They begin to notice my character, that they're putting obstacles in front of me. First, they try to put I'm walking down the street, and they'll put certain people there to see if I'm afraid of them. And so I start talking to the people. And, I'm not, like, what's the worst they're going to do? Somebody's going to, like, knock me out or something like that. I doubt they're going to kill me. So I'm not worried about it. I'm just going down the street, and I'm meeting all these different people. And so the handler, they said, wait a minute, we got to put some more obstacles in front of him. This isn't working out too well. So then my food started getting drugged at multiple different restaurants. Now, that is one of the scariest things you will ever go through, if you ever have to go through it. To go somewhere and eat and have your food drugged. And I was on foot. So I leave the restaurant and I'm dizzy. I'm like, oh man, I'm tripping. And I'm being gang stalked by the restaurant while it's happening. The waitresses and all this, they're all doing assignments on and stuff. So I'm sitting there taking a drug. I don't even know what the drug is that's in my food. I just know I'm under the influence of a powerful drug. If somebody is not psychotic and they take some sort of antipsychotic drug, then they're going to start experiencing what a psychotic person would experience. I think it was something like that. I think it was some sort of experimental drug or some sort of pharmaceutical. I don't know what it was. To this day, I don't know what they were putting in there. So I leave out of there and I start walking, and I'm thinking, man, this is deep. I'm tripping. And so I still have my jump rope. So I just keep jump roping. I'm not worried about it. I'm not tripping. I just keep jump roping. I'm dizzy. I can't even get that many jump ropes in because I feel like I'm going to pass out. And so, but I'm still doing it. I'm like, I'm not going to allow this to disconnect me from what I decided I was going to do. I'm not going to let them get in the light of that path whatsoever. But I still maintain like a positive atmosphere, though. I'm still waving at the people and all this stuff. I wasn't going to let it turn into a negative type thing to where I was angry and all that stuff. I just wanted to keep an optimistic perspective on what was going on. You always want to try to keep an optimistic perspective, especially when something like that's happening to you. So I keep approaching the people. I keep talking to them. And eventually I learned enough. I learned enough in Phoenix about gang stalking to be able to come up with enough to get through it anywhere I go in the world. And mind you, cars with lights coming 24/7, brightening effects, people doing all sorts of little things. I can't even walk into a store without people outside doing street theater and assignments, people in front of me, this isn't anything that calms down or stops. I don't even, the way I explain it, I can't get out the reality of what you're going through. Only somebody who's been through it would actually know. So I'm going through all these things. Then I leave. I withdraw my energy, and I leave, remanifest. I go back to where I'm from. I go back to Michigan, right? So the lessons that I learned there, I brought back to Michigan. So I created a lot of cool stuff for people. I wanted to give people insight as to how they can change their reality around them if they're going through gang stalking. One of the biggest things somebody's going to do is they're going to want to get violent. If somebody's never been through gang stalking and they get gang stalked, oftentimes they'll react very violently. I think a lot of people out there who you hear about random shootings and people just acting out really bizarrely, I think a lot of these people are being targeted. And they just don't know what's happening to them, or that maybe they don't care for whatever reason. And so humans are animals. Just because you're human does not mean you're not an animal. You put an animal in the corner, watch what they're going to do. Put a raccoon in the corner. You'll wish you'll wish you hadn't. So you put somebody in a corner, they're going to exhibit a lot of strange behavior that you've never seen before. This is done psychologically. It's not done physically. Psychologically, people are put within corners. The roots of it are spiritual in nature. When you look at the lower chakra, the root chakra, the color is red. the majority of targeted people going through gang stalking, targeted individuals around the country, they're always seeing red. The root chakra mainly goes off of fear and survival. If you see red following you repeatedly in repeated patterns, that's going to activate that lower chakra. And remember, this is confusing. This is here to scare people, frighten people. And so it manifests in a psychological way, but the roots of it are very spiritual. This is some sort of spiritual thing going on. I mean, people are being asked to do these assignments. They're being financed for it. Yeah, it's real. I mean, it's not imaginary. It's not in the spiritual realm. It's happening in day-to-day life. But the whoever constructed that knows very well that this is spiritually based. And so you got to take it to a spiritual level as a challenge and ask yourself, okay, I'm being approached with this. I'm feeling fearful. I'm feeling confused. What do I have to do within my circumstance to step out of that? So going to things like drugs and alcohol is not the answer. That's going to pull you more into that. I'm not saying a drug cannot help somebody in some sort of way, like a pharmaceutical drug, or some people experiment with like ayahuasca and stuff. I don't take drugs, but I would not recommend taking a drug to try to. You have to face reality. You have to face this stuff, not run from it. So getting as spiritual as you can and elevating your energy in whatever way you can is the best thing to do. And there's always going to be an element of agitation, and they try to surprise you. Like, you know, surprise is one of the greatest elements. So when you're going through gang stalking, someone's going to learn your routine, the places you go, the people you talk to. They're going to try to utilize that in a way and then throw all kinds of surprises and things in there. So always expect the unexpected based on these assignments. Try to change your routine as much as possible. For some people, that's much harder than others. And you got to think, there's guys who are married who have a full career who get hit with this stuff. And they lose their career. They lose their wife. They lose a lot. And everybody around them is telling them they're paranoid or they're crazy. Or you got to think that this stuff is real. It's happening to people, and people around them don't get it. So if it's happening to you, and these people are doing these assignments on you, try to talk to them, but recognize they know what they're doing, but they're not doing it through the same filter as what you think. They're doing it through these apps, through all these different programs and stuff like that. And so if you can get a dialogue going with somebody, they might reveal a little bit to you, you know, depending. But most of these people don't know very much about you being gang stalked overall. They just know, it's like on a need to know. They just know what their assignment is, no matter how small or how large that is, to whatever degree. So you have that. You have that right there. You have that you're being hit with all this agitation. And if somebody, avoid the people, if you notice somebody doing, if you notice somebody doing all these assignments on you and they're gang stalking you and they know what's happening, they're very familiar with what's happening to you, don't try to go out of your way to make friends with that individual or talk to that individual, because they already have in their mind that what they're doing to you is okay, that they're being financed for doing this to you, and it's okay, and those people are willing to do anything to get out of it. They'll lie, they'll do anything they have to do to get out of it. They will not admit what they're doing to you if they do not have to. And then society at this time is not prepared for the people watching to say, oh my God, yeah, this person has been, you know what I mean? So you have to try to keep a distance from that sort of thing. And you want people around you who will be open and honest about what's happening to you if you can. Some people don't find that. Very rarely will you find somebody who's not being gang stalked, who has the time and the energy to sit there and talk to you about it and learn from you and teach you things. That's rare. Most people, closed-minded people, they don't care. They got their own problems or their own issues. So with YouTube, you can come on the internet and you can see all these thousands of people on YouTube saying the exact same, saying the exact thing. I'm being followed by people wearing red. I see the street theater. I see the mimicking. I see all this stuff. So there's a repeat common factor. This is going on in China. I had somebody from a third world country in Africa email me and tell me it was happening to them. I had a lot of courses online for people where people would call me and I'd interview them about gang stalking, and then I would help them and set up things for them to learn from their circumstances and get better at it. And I had emails from people from all sorts of strange places I didn't even know existed. And I'm thinking, like, how in a third world country in Africa is somebody being hit with assignments? Like, that really tripped me out. And so I learned this is happening. Like, this is happening everywhere. This isn't just, wherever the area you live at. This is all over the world. People are going through this. The same tactics: color coding, brightening, mimicking, street theater, ghosting, those types of things on a high level. People can be drugged. They can have. I've heard some really strange stories. I spoke to a woman who's been going through it since the 80s. She started going through it in the early 80s. She was from Detroit, and she worked at a cafeteria, and she went downstairs, and she was placing plates and forks and knives and spoons all throughout the cafeteria. And she would disappear and go on break for like 15, 20 minutes. She came back, and everything in the cafeteria had been removed and placed originally where she had it before she dished it out. This is way before the internet. So she thought she was going crazy. She actually ended up at a psychiatric ward. She literally thought she was going crazy. And this stuff was happening to her for a long term. This is back in the early 80s in Detroit. Before the internet, before anything like that. No one even knew gang stalking, I don't even think was a term used yet. Not gang stalking, I think is like a 90s term. And by the way, a gang is just 3 or more people. It can be 3 old women. Come on, gang, let's go to the park. So if 3 old women are following somebody around town, well, that's gang stalking. 3 people, a gang, and then they're stalking the person around town. So the term gang stalking is often misleading to people. People hear gang stalking and it just sounds really bizarre. Then they go on the internet and they see all this strange supernatural stuff. People saying extraterrestrials. I often say that. I often say there has to be something much bigger behind all this stuff. That's my own personal feelings on it. Other people don't feel that way. But oftentimes you come across that. You'll see all the videos next to Bigfoot, Godzilla people, reptilian people and stuff. So, it becomes very threatening to the average person who is afraid to look outside the norm. So then there's over like 5 million websites online. Now I'm talking about blogs and all this different types of stuff that reference or mention target individuals or gang stalking. That's really interesting. And lo and behold, the average person in the United States is being stalked by 3 or more people. So gang stalking, it's the conversation and the subject matter. When you try to communicate what's happening to you with people, if you can put things in proper perspective, then people will be more willing to accept and understand what's going on with you. If you just say, oh, I'm being gang stalked, and a satanic cult is following me around everywhere, and they're all wearing red, and, blah, 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 Area 51, all this stuff. People, People might even listen to that. There's some people out there who'll be open to listen to that, but it's not going to make too much sense. There's people out there who try to explain it that way. But if you can look at the how this stuff is legitimately being introduced to people to do the assignments, and then you can make sense out of it and show people, hey, this is happening all over the place. It's a phenomenon. It's the same thing. All these different people, none of us know each other. I had multiple conversations with a man in Australia, and he was going through some really extreme gang stalking, and I don't even know him. I mean, I do now because we've spoken, but he's going through all this stuff and the exact same stuff that I go through, and he understood completely what I was going through. It only took him 10 minutes to listen to what I was saying, and then he was able to tell back to me, oh, yeah, I know about that. And that's what all these different people around the world are experiencing the same stuff. Somebody from China can look at what the stuff I say and say, yeah, it happens to me too. It's exactly the same stuff. Exactly the same. And so how is that a mass? That's one thing I've been trying to figure out. How is that a mass paranoia or some sort of mental illness or something? China, that's an Eastern philosophy. The Chinese look at things completely different than people do in the West. You would think they would interpret, you would think if it was some sort of paranoid delusion, it would manifest differently in their culture and their perspective. How could somebody from an Eastern philosophy, an Eastern culture, who doesn't speak a word of English, maybe never even been on the internet except for the time they posted the video, is able to come on and say the exact same stuff and show the exact same evidence of somebody that lives on the other side of the world? That's a really deep mass paranoia, right? That defines like modern medicine. Like that needs to be, if that is true, that needs to be on Dr. Phil. It needs to be on Oprah. It needs to be everywhere, because that's crazy. I've never heard anybody actually explain this stuff accurately and have something actually wrong with them. Yeah, people are different. You meet all sorts of different people who go through different sorts of stuff, but if somebody is explaining this stuff to a T, either they're making it up or it's actually happening. I don't see why somebody would make something like that up. I just don't see. So yeah, so if you just start getting gang stalked and you go out on the street and you're walking around, it's not going to harm you to have conversations with these people and let them know what's happening to you and ask them for advice and communicate with them. It's not going to harm you at all. The idea of this is to isolate you so you don't do that. But you should be more open with the people around you. There's certain people you do want to avoid who are doing the gang stalking, and those are the people, they know they're gang stalking you, and for whatever reason they look at you as an open opportunity to benefit on that. You know who, it's just like the normal world. You know who to stay away from and who not to. But the average person, you can communicate with them, you can talk to them, you can learn from them whatsoever. And then waving at the cars. I used to stand on the corner for hours, and see people doing assignments against me and just wave at them and look at them and try to figure out, like, are they going to stop? Sometimes they will. One guy stopped and gave me a ride. Older man. He stopped and picked me up and gave me a ride all the way from where I live all the way to Grand Haven, Michigan. And I used to go on walks all the way out miles. I used to go on miles of walks and just wave at people and talk to people who are doing assignments on me, approach them, speak to them. Same thing, when I came back from Phoenix, I learned the stuff I learned. I even had, in the local area, I even had my food getting drugged sometimes. That was interesting because that came back. That was networked back to do that. That's the interesting part. But it was still the same. I still was on the jump rope. I still was learning. I still was approaching people, talking to people, um, explaining to them how I interpreted what was happening. And I remember going to every single store. There was one time, there's a shopping mall center over here. I remember I went to every single store, and when I went to the store, the people in the store would be doing the gang stalking. And so following me, doing all this sort of stuff, they would have certain people like mimic and stuff. And so it was a feeling like, man, I'm tired of this. I'm tired. I'm tired of. I'm gonna let these people know what they're doing. And so I just started talking to them and telling them what gang stalking was. I told them who I was, and I told them to look up my gang stalking videos and stuff like that. And I did that to 3 stores. Then when I got to the 4th store, the people's attitudes changed in the 4th store. The first store, it looked, maybe they were looking at me like I was there to shoplift or steal something. Like, I don't know what story they got, with these programs these stores are with, to where somebody comes in. It's gang stalking, but from their interpretation, I don't know what they're told or whatever. So the 4th store I get to, they change their attitudes, and the people are much more like open and decent and honest. And so I thought to myself, whoever is watching me go to these stores, they changed. By the time I got to the 4th store and they saw what I was doing, they changed their attitudes, and the nature of the store got more relaxed. So me speaking to the stores and talking to them about what's happening actually helped me a lot. It did a lot for me. And then when I came back into the stores, now the people know what's going on. At least from my perspective, they do. So it changed the atmosphere. When you walk into a gas station, you have these people, they'll already be waiting for you to do these assignments on you and all this stuff. If you walk in there and you just start talking to people about it, you start talking to the clerk or whatever like that, it'll break the air. It's etheric. It's spiritual, basically. Words have power. And so it'll break the air, and then you'll notice the change in the feeling in the room. So a lot of the tactics and measures I went to help people get through gang stalking, they're very effective stuff. Walking up to the people, shaking their hand, waving at them. I'm trying to remember. I had so many. There was a lot of different things I used to do. The genie effect, I think, was one of the greatest things I came up with. I would say the genie effect is something to the effect to where you're constantly being mimicked. They're mimicking you all the time, to some degree, in various different ways. Sometimes you might not even know what's going on, and you're being mimicked. Dozens of different forms of mimicking going on. So I would come up with different strategies called the genie effect. Or I would create an impression as to what to mimic back to me. So the gang stalking stuff was mimicking things back to me, but I was purposely giving it the impression as to what to do. It was pretty cool. I've had a lot of cool stuff. I learned a lot of cool tricks. So you can go somewhere and be hanging out. And I remember I'd go somewhere, I'd be hanging out and just be smiling and all this stuff, right? I'd just be hanging out, smiling there. We're not tripping, we're just smiling. We're not tripping over nothing. And I'd be hanging out. And then they would actually have different sorts of people come in who were smiling and all this stuff. It was crazy. They'd have different sorts of people that come in and be smiling. I would repeatedly talk. I would explain. I would give an impression for a certain sort of female or something like that. They would be mimicking women back who fit that same impression. How they're able to network that, I don't know. But they can do it at a very high rate. Certain types of taste in music, different sorts of things, they can mimic all this stuff back to you. And so that's called the genie effect. You can change the reality of what's happening to you. And there's money being spent. People are spending money on it. This isn't something, irrelevant. You're changing the flow of dollars. Money is being spent to get people to do the assignment. So you're changing the flow of dollars. You're changing people's attitudes. You're changing the way people respond and think. So it is. There's different sorts of tricks and techniques you can use to create power. Everything is based off of you. If you're being targeted by gang stalking, especially at a high level, it's all based off of you to begin with. It's all based off what can psychologically bother you or what can spiritually bother you. It's all spiritual, but it manifests as psychologically, socially. It's all based off of you anyway. Everything is based off of you. You give out to the universe, and it comes back. With the gang stalking, the same way. It's all based off the individual who's going through it. There's nobody else out there who is not for anybody but you. That's all the person is for, is you. And so that's one of the biggest messages I was trying to share with people is you can change your experience of it. Now, there's a lot of things I went through that were unfortunate, but I'm still helping people. I still give people advice. If somebody called me today and said, Jameel, I'm having issues, man. I'm thinking about, I'm having problems. And it's not going too well. What should I do? I wouldn't turn the person down for nothing if they really needed help. You know what I mean? I'd be there instantly to help the person. And so you learn. I've had so much experience with gang stalking. I can explain anything to anybody who really needs help, who's going through it at the levels I went through it at. So, and you're talking about somebody. I was. People don't have a clue the obstacles I've had to jump through. People don't have a clue. And the average person out there going through gang stalking, it's really hard on those people. It's really hard on those people. I don't I don't give anybody I don't play the blame game and give other people power and say it's such and such's fault or they're responsible or whatever like that. Most of these people are here today, gone tomorrow. There's always going to be somebody different you can blame for something. I'm a 32-year-old grown man. I don't got time to sit there and point fingers and blame people for my life. I just deal with things as they come. So that's another thing is putting blame on, that will manifest. If you put blame on people and put blame on things, it will manifest. And it's not about what you're putting the blame on. It doesn't matter who it is or what it is. It doesn't matter. You are giving that power outside of yourself. You're saying that somebody else or something else has the power to change your experience of your own life. It's okay to acknowledge certain stuff as it happens. I'm not saying don't acknowledge what's going on with you. But if you repeatedly give something energy or whatever, it will you will give, and so a lot of times when I was being gang stalked, I would take simple stuff that really had no meaning. People who really didn't have it, their position wasn't really anything important. But I created the significance of it through my energy of expanding upon it. You can blow things out of proportion greatly. So a lot of people come on YouTube that are being gang stalked and they complain about stuff or whatever. That's exactly whoever the handlers are of that person or whoever's creating. That's what they want to see. What's going to bother you? What's going to trip you out? if you're trying to figure something out or you need something, it'll happen naturally. It'll happen as it's supposed. If it's not happening naturally, if it's not happening as it's supposed to be happening, then there's something wrong, and you should leave it alone. Don't ever try to force anything into being. If you're trying to force something into being, that's a sign that there's something wrong to begin with. Something's very wrong. If something doesn't unfold as it's supposed to, then let nature take its course. Don't trip off it. Yeah. Yeah. And another thing is that a lot of people who never gone through gang stalking, oftentimes they ask, why does somebody who's going through gang stalking come on the internet and talk about it? Doesn't that make it worse? I've heard that a few times. Doesn't that make it worse? No, it doesn't. Because you're going to be getting gang stalked anyway. Anyway. Usually with no voice. That's what makes it worse. That's where the trouble comes in at. When you don't have a way to express yourself and what's going on, that's the ultimate. That's 10 times worse than not saying anything. Somebody who's going through gang stalking, it's worse if they don't have any type of healthy outlet or venue. Speaking about gang stalking isn't creating more gang stalking. It may give concepts and ideas to the people who are using it, but it doesn't create. It's not going to mess up the person anymore. People will say, "Why you're in gang stalk? Why are you talking about it?" They never been through it, so they don't get how this stuff actually, from the first person's perspective, they don't get it. They don't get it at all. The average person that does assignments on somebody or orchestrates assignments on somebody, they have no idea in the world what that's like. They may get impressions if they're watching the person for a long time, but they do not know what that's like. They may only see about 1/10 of it. I would challenge anybody. There's a movie called The Game, where the man signed up for the corporation, Michael Douglas, the actor in the film, he signed up for the corporation to experience the game. I would challenge anybody, if they have the ability, to get themselves put in it for 5 days. Just 5. After 2 days, they wouldn't want to continue the next 3. There's no kind of book that's going to prepare anybody. There's no kind of special training that's going to prepare anybody. There's nothing. Where is it? Show it to me. Where is it? That's why people like myself are on YouTube talking. There's nothing out there for it. It doesn't exist. There's for people who want to serve and help the public. Oh, they got all kinds of academies and special schools and special training and the list goes on. People can get degrees and doctor's degrees. They can spend their whole life being educated and learning. When it comes to getting gangster, that doesn't exist. Everything you're either going to learn stuff the hard way, or you're going to pick up on stuff from somebody else who's gone through it. And that's the definition. That's one of the definitions of intelligence is experience. There's no book you're going to read. Go to the library and read a book. People eat you alive trying to base this. This stuff isn't a book. It's real life. That's one of the things that I really truly believe. I really truly know this. The people who watch people on YouTube who are saying they're getting targeted gang stalking, they're not making this stuff up. They're not delusional. They're not paranoid. This is something real that they're going through 24/7. 24/7. Happening every single day. No matter what. Every single day. For years. 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 I don't know if I can get that across to people. Years. I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows what that feels like. Your food being drugged, people following you, doing all sorts of things to you, getting threats and all kinds of stuff like that. Stuff like that can happen to you for years. That's about the equivalent. That's somewhere in the realm of Chinese torture. That's somewhere people don't know. People have seen me online and seen me talking about gang stalking. It's maybe I think it's something about me, the way I present it. It just doesn't seem real to people. Like it's a joke. Like it's not real. And that's one of the things. There's all sorts of people out there who go through this, and it happens every single day for years. I'm going on 3 years of this stuff. 3 of them. There's people out there who've been doing it for 10. There's people out there who've been doing it for 20. It's not a game. Nothing funny about it. I've been gang stalked so much. I have dreams about getting gang stalked. In my dreams I get street theater and color coding and stuff. I'm not joking. In my dreams, even in my dreams, people do assignments on me. You know how you spend a lot of time doing something or around certain people? Like if you play chess a lot, you might have a dream of chess, the game chess. Or checkers a lot, you have dreams of this stuff, you play it too much. I have dreams of people doing assignments on me. That means it's 24/7. That doesn't. That's what that means. That means it's 24/7. Dreams of that stuff. It's all good though. It's all good. But that's a good question. So what happens after 3? I'm approaching 3 years. What does it feel like? What does it look like? Boy, I don't. You get immune to it. You build immunity to it. It's still not nothing you want going on. It's still disappointing to get gang. You're never gonna get used to it, but you get used. When I say immunity, you get used to it happening. You become more accepting of it. You say, "Oh, this, like, big surprise." It's not big surprise. I go somewhere, I'm being gang stalked. It's still gonna affect you. You don't want it happening. But it's not. You're not going to be as surprised as you were when it first started going on. And no one's coming in to help you. No, get that one out of your head. Get that one out of your head. Get that one out of your head. If you're getting gang stalked, you're on your own. Get that one out of your head. Get that one out of your head. I remember my food was drugged at a restaurant I went to. And the people who drugged my food were sitting there doing assignments on me after they drugged my food. I know there's people out there I didn't trip off it. But I know there's people out there who would have reacted to that situation a lot differently. You know? And I went through that. I go back, so I'm trying to discover what drug it was. And I go to the hospital. And they took my blood. Or I believe it was. They took my urine or my blood or something. And they said, well, you know what? We didn't find any drugs in your system, but we don't know what to test for either. We don't know what to test for because we don't know what you took. We only have a small panel of like 10 different drugs or a few different drugs, 25 different drugs. Yeah, so all that means is whoever put it in my system knew it wouldn't have showed up if I went to the hospital. That's all that means. Try. People don't know. People don't know what that. See, several stuff like that happened to you several times, not just one time, several times. While the hospital's gang stalking you. That's gang stalking is real. This stuff has happened to me throughout my life. So, but to draw a positive conclusion, all that stuff, you just learn from it. You go to buffets. If you're worried about somebody putting a drug in your food, next time you go to a buffet where everybody eats from the same thing and you don't have to worry about it, or you prepare your own food. There's all different sorts of ways you can get around this stuff. I remember one place I went to, I told them who I was, and I told them I was being gang stalked. I gave my phone number and everything, and they still dosed me whatever they. I don't know how they did it, but they still did it. That was the crazy part. I sat there for 15 minutes explaining to them who I was and what gang stalking was, and how I had been drugged at other restaurants. And they got the handler guy in the background sitting there watching me talk to them and all this stuff. And they still drugged me. They still did. That was a low blow right there. But you got to try to. You try to brush this stuff off though. You don't trip on this stuff. But so if you just started getting gang stalked, you're gonna go through some hard times. You're gonna go through some things. I only know one person who got it turned off. Matter of fact, it was the first person who contacted me for help. And he was in a pretty bad position. He wouldn't come out of his room where he was living at. He was being gang stalked. He was like near. He wasn't near. He told me this guy had thought about suicide. The doctors were putting him on psychiatric drugs and all this stuff, and he was it was pretty bad. He was being gang stalked and all this stuff. And so I talked him out of that, gave him strategies or whatever to get through it. He bounced back. Next thing you know, he was going into stores, calling out the people who were doing the assignments on him. So he manifested out of that, and now it's stopped for him, which is great. So I guess he did beat it. I guess he did beat gangsta. That's crazy. I didn't think about it like that. Who else is out there going through this stuff? You know what? Okay, so you have the visual. The visual is people, colors used on people and objects within your environment around you. certain individuals wearing certain colored shirts, cars with colors, street theater. It can be construction work. It can be all different sorts of stuff that will be utilized. And the hope is that you will go through this, and as it continues, it will have some sort of lasting effect on you. That's why it's so intense and so spread out, so you can go so far and it can continue to happen. And that's visual. Then the audio is the noise, sound, music, people. You know, you can be sitting in a room and somebody will ask somebody to go near where you are and begin making noise. That's audio. That's natural audio. Individuals creating noise intentionally for the purpose of establishing an assignment. Then there's non-natural noise. Car radios, artificial sounds, horns, duck horns, and different sorts of stuff like that. These are things that are created to create some sort of disturbance to an individual. That's the intentions of it. Doesn't mean it's going to manifest that way. Sometimes the people won't even know. There's a lot of people out there who go through this stuff, especially when it first starts happening, they don't even know it's happening. A lot of people don't even know they're being gang stalked. I remember I had my phone, I was on my phone one time. See, I'm a veteran esoteric researcher, right? There used to be a time where I used to call people and you know, speak to them, all sorts of stuff. And I remember I was on my phone and somebody kept calling my phone and it came unavailable. And I'm thinking, like, who keeps calling my phone? I didn't even know at the time this was a form of gang stalking. I didn't know it, but it was. That's exactly what it was. And I didn't know it. So it was coming up unavailable. And then that's another thing is phones. These phones, where's the phone at? These phones, I got all sorts of phones. People don't know about. But these phones, right? These phones right here will get you caught up. And so you can have a phone and you can set the phone down and speak around the phone. The audio will be picked up. And that will create the assignments. Somebody's listening to the audio around this phone. There's an audio input on the phone, and by you speaking around these phones, the older the phone, the better off you are. By you speaking around the phone, the audio is coming into it, and they're hearing what you're talking about. They're hearing your conversation. There's a lot of things I don't ever speak about openly because I don't want anybody to know. So I don't speak. If I'm in a car with somebody, I don't care if I don't have my phone. Do they got a phone? Yeah. All right. There's a phone around. Okay. And then people will think I'm tripping. People will hear me talking, and people will be like, oh. I'll say, hey, put that phone over there. They'll say, what are you talking about? They'll say, man, are you crazy? What's wrong with you? Put that phone. They don't understand. They don't understand. They don't know. You know, even though it came out of the news, keep these phones away from you. They don't understand. And so keep these phones can get you in a lot of trouble. Everything you say, you'll be mimicked, gang stalked on it. Then the text messages. You see people walking around all the time, texting on these phones. Yeah, everything. They're everything. So they're going to use all this stuff within these assignments. You know, then the people that are doing the assignments on you, they're listening to. The people who do the assignments on you, they're watching everything they say. There's people watching people who are watching people who are watching people who are watching people who are watching. Because, you know what I mean? And so these assignments, that's why I don't like these phones and all this stuff. You know, we're in a technological era, and there's nothing wrong with technology. Technology can be used to do a lot of good stuff, but I don't like it. I don't even the internet and all that stuff. I don't. You know, we have to use it to whatever degree, but try to refrain from it. You're giving people ammunition to constantly do these assignments against you. Now, and anybody, almost, it's kind of the point now to where almost all different types of people can listen to you speak around these phones now. You know, it doesn't mean if the people got the money for the technology, you can order, excuse my language, you can order almost anything on Amazon now. You know, you can get the stuff if you want it. But that's why you see people, okay, like you see a phone like this eye thing right here. When people are doing the assignments, often they will be looking at their phones. Like this. That's the same thing I'm talking about. They got the app. They're doing a safe watch thing for their neighborhood watch, or they're doing a store shop thing, or they're doing something, and the app on the phone is teaching them where to go to do the assignment. That's often why they'll keep looking at their phone. And they'll be sitting there going, oh, blah, 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 blah. And they know they're going to do their assignment. And their assignment will show them what to do. A lot of them know they know what gang stalking is. They know this is it's just something that's being used to help people get gang stalked. That's all it is. Some people know what they're into, some people don't know. But yeah. But one of the things I've learned is they can know where you're at. You don't even have to have a phone on you. You can go to a different country. You can go. You can get on if you're getting gang stalked, especially at a high level. You can go to the Kremlin, and it's still going to be happening. You'll be walking around Moscow, and people will be doing assignments on you. And they'll be following you everywhere and all this stuff. That stuff, no one needs a phone to follow you. They can do assignments on you. And you can go to the Congo. And they'll have missionaries down there doing assignments on you. People think I'm joking. I'm serious. Yeah. So again, this is one of the things I do. I'm looking as I'm watching this camera. I got pictures right here I was looking at. But this is one of the things I do is just provide assistance for people who are just beginning, especially people who are just beginning to go through gang stalking, or people who have been going through it for long term and something's happened and they're not sure what to do. And they would like some sort of assistance, some sort of help. And so most of my stuff, again, is based on the chakra system. You know, I'm in stuff like channeling, lucid dreaming, and all the different sorts of stuff. I think I'm at a disadvantage through the internet. I wouldn't mind meeting some people who are going through gang stalking, especially if you're in Michigan and you're going through gang stalking. That'd be one of the first things I like to do, is speak to somebody in person. I don't like this internet puts you at a disadvantage because people can't see day to day what's going on with these assignments. They're not with you, so they don't really know what you're talking about. So that's one of the things I'd like to establish, is people that can say, hey, I'm going through gang stalking. This is something that's happening to me. And I want to meet you and talk to you about this. Give me advice. That's what I'm most interested in.